It's Coastal Gardener on the Talk Station FM 107.1. And joining us this afternoon in studio is Sean Banks of the North Carolina Cooperative Extension Agency. With that, good afternoon. And, as we start the program, what's the schedule for today?
Well, good afternoon. I wanted to talk about a couple of different things today. One is I've been reading a lot about insects and things that they're doing with insects, and the other is I've been getting a lot of questions about turf grass. So those were the two topics I wanted to talk a little bit about today. I want to kind of start with some of the things I've been hearing about insects. Spotted lanternfly is one of those non-native invasive insects that's getting closer to our area, coming into our area.
They became a big issue 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah. 2 years ago, they thought they had some that were shipped in on some Christmas trees into a farm or into a sales yard in Onslow County, but we never did find any. So we're pretty sure that didn't happen, or they were able to find where they were and got rid of them, burned the eggs before they hatched. But speaking of the spotted lanternfly, they've been doing some research in, I want to say it's Virginia, with using dogs to sniff out spotted lanternfly in grapevine vineyards and in orchards to be able to spot those. So they're trying to train the dogs to specifically find spotted lanternfly.
Okay, now I'm sitting here, first thought of ever using a dog to try to search out insects. But first question, what kind of dogs do they use? Do they have a specific breed?
I don't know that they have a specific breed. A lot of dogs can be taught to sniff for specific scents and smells. They use police dogs to sniff out drugs and that kind of thing. And
explosives and things of that nature.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So they're able to sniff out the lanternfly. I guess they're sniffing, but are they looking for the larva, or are they actually smelling the actual fly itself?
Well, the lanternfly has incomplete metamorphosis, so it pretty much just has 3 life stages. Has the egg, and then it has the immature stage, and the immature stage, as it grows, it looks more and more like the adult. So it doesn't go from a caterpillar to a pupa to a butterfly. It goes from an egg to an immature to an adult.
Okay.
And it just gets bigger and bigger until it develops its full set of wings.
Okay.
So they're teaching it to smell the scent of the lanternfly once it's hatched out of the eggs.
All right. Let's talk about several observations. Can you describe the lanternfly very easily here on radio? We'll ask people, obviously, to turn up their video here on their radio on their car radios and their house radios. But if someone doesn't have that, can you describe it? And then the next question is, what are we looking for in the way of knowing that we may have a spotted lanternfly in our shrubbery?
Well, spotted lanternflies are a plant hopper, so they're not very big, about 1/4 of an inch, maybe 5/8 of an inch. Well, not quite 5/8. A little over 1/4 of an inch, between 1/4 and 1/2 an inch long. So they're still really tiny. And they have the exterior wings are kind of a tan color, and they have black spots all over them. The inner wings are kind of a pink or reddish color, and they also have the spots on them. But usually they're found in large numbers. They don't usually separate. You don't just find 1s and 2s. You usually find large numbers of them all together.
Okay, so I'm looking at a plant, and I see these critters on that plant. I can take a quick look at that and say, okay, this looks like spotted lanternfly, right?
If it's the adults, yeah, you'll probably be able to spot them and see them really quick and really easy. If it's the immatures, they'll usually be in groups of anywhere from 25 or 50 to 100.
Okay.
And so there'll be a large mass of them all there together. And they feed in groups, and they have piercing, sucking mouth parts, so they suck the juices out of the plant. And because they suck so much juices, they're in large numbers, they usually stress the plant out to the point where they start attracting other insects, and then eventually it kills the plant.
Okay. Next question. What kind of plants are specifically targeted by spotted lanternfly? Is it a specific plant, or are they just indiscriminate?
In their native habitat, tree of heaven, which is also invasive in our area, is their favorite food source. But here in our area, they're finding them on just about anything. Grapevines, fruit trees, ornamental trees and shrubs. So they're finding them on a wide variety of things, and they're very indiscriminate about what they feed
Right.
on. But if there is a tree of heaven in the area, that's the one that you're most likely to find it.
Okay. And then what do we look for in the way of damage from a spotted lanternfly that would indicate that we either have it or it's visited recently?
The tree will usually look a little bit weak, so it won't be as the leaves probably won't be as turgid. They probably won't have as much color to them. Um, it's kind of hard to describe, but a lot of people will describe it as they've been looking at this plant and it looks really healthy and vigorous, and then all of a sudden it starts looking weak and less vigorous and not so vibrant. And that's usually a sign that there's something stressful with the plant. Now that could be spotted lanternfly, or it could be any number of other things: a nutrient imbalance, not enough water, too much water. But usually, if you'll start looking around when you see a tree or a plant that's acting stressed out, if you'll start looking around, you'll be able to hopefully be able to see what's going on. If you can't see an insect that's causing the damage, a lot of times it's something in the soil.
All right, we're talking with Sean Banks again, Cooperative Agriculture Extension Agency, and this we're talking about the spotted lanternfly, and I'd heard about that 2 years ago, and there was a great deal of concern. Obviously, didn't hear much last year, but let's talk here for a moment. If we see the spotted lanternfly, what do we do? And the other question is, can we recover the plant? But first, what do we do if we see a spotted lanternfly?
Probably the best thing to do if you think you found a spotted lanternfly, either take a picture or catch one of them and get it identified. You can take it to your local extension office, and the agriculture agent there should be able to help you identify it. And then the agriculture agent will notify North Carolina Agriculture Department and let them know where it is so that they can come out, because the idea is if we find them in here, we want to eradicate it as quickly as possible because they are invasive, and if we can kill a small population, we don't have to worry about it becoming established.
We can't. Can we kill it ourselves? I mean,
you can. They are killed by and I'd have to look up the exact names, but a lot of the pyrethroid chemicals that will kill the other plant hoppers will do a good job on the spotted lanternfly as well.
All right. And is there a way to salvage the plant if it has been attacked by the spotted lanternfly?
Yeah. Like I said, they suck the juices out. So once you get rid of the spotted lanternfly, so it's not sucking the juices out, then the plant can start taking up the nutrients and putting it in the leaves where it needs to go.
You use the term plant hoppers. What are another example of a plant hopper?
Some people call sharpshooters or a plant hopper. It's a little tiny green insect. Unless you're really looking for them, you don't normally see them. Sharpshooters a lot of times will be on the plant, and then if you approach the plant and they're on the side of the plant that you're approaching from, they'll usually just kind of shuffle their way around to the other side of the plant. And then if they feel like they're in danger, then they'll usually just hop off and fly away.
Okay. That's the other question. What is a plant? The term plant hopper, I guess they don't fly very far is what it boils down to?
Usually they don't fly a great distance.
Okay.
They're usually going to feed in that general area and stay right there where the eggs were laid most of the time.
All right. Those are of course, the spotted lanternfly, and of course, we've talked about this on numerous occasions, and that is the invasive plants, invasive species. As a matter of fact, you said, what was it, the tree of heaven?
Right.
Is an invasive species. What is it replacing, just out of curiosity? Is it because of its foliage? What?
A lot of times when it gets into an area, it grows very rapidly, and it produces a lot of shade. So plants that like to have the sun, if it gets taller than those plants, then it's going to shade them out, and it's going to get rid of that native environment for them. Some invasive species, and I don't think tree of heaven is one of those, but some invasive plant species put off chemicals that prevent other plants from being able to grow in that area.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Again, we're talking with Sean Banks. Again, Carteret County Cooperative Agriculture Extension Agency, Cooperative Extension Agency with North Carolina Department of Agriculture. I'll get it here right in a moment. All right, we're talking about invasive species, and we mentioned the spotted lanternfly. Any others before we go to the break that are coming to the table? The spotted lanternfly. It was originally seen in other states.
Right. And right now, I don't know of any that are close by us, but it is in Virginia and I think I've seen reports of it being in Tennessee.
Is it because of temperate climate that it prefers?
Right, we're in that temperate climate. A lot of times they spread slowly because they get into one environment and then they start to spread. And sometimes they will spread rapidly because with the spotted lanternfly, if you're at a rest area where there's spotted lanternfly, the female will lay the eggs on the car, and then the car will move down to another area or into another state, and they can spread that way.
Okay. All right. So, any other species that are of concern right now?
Well, the other species is not necessarily an invasive or a non-native. It's the fall webworm is the other one that.
I'm sorry, the what?
Fall webworm is one that they talk about. It's usually worse in the fall.
Okay.
But it can start migrating up from Georgia and Florida this time of the year, and they've found with some research that they've been doing at NC State that if you add a perfume chemical or a chemical that's found in a lot of perfumes to the lure, then it'll attract more of the males because they think they're going to get some, and then they'll get stuck in that trap and they won't be able to mate. So that reduces the population. Well, it reduces the male population.
Okay.
And hopefully that in doing that, it reduces the overall population.
Well, we don't know. They could transition too. We won't go there. We just leave it right now. We're talking with Shawn Banks again of the Carter County Agriculture Extension Agency, part of the Cooperative Extension Agency here on Coastal Gardener on the Talk Station. It's Coastal Gardener on the Talk Station, FM 107.1. And joining us today, of course, we have Shawn Banks of the Carter County Cooperative Agriculture Extension Agency. I keep throwing the Agriculture Extension Agency in there. Somewhere it belongs. Let's talk about the issue of invasive plants here for a moment. How are we at a point now where we need to start looking at that with the spring season?
Well, right now we'll be able to start noticing more of those invasive species that are out there. I was on a walk earlier this week at Hoot Pole Creek, walking down their trail down there. And one of the things that I noticed is that there are a lot more of the privet out there than what I originally had thought.
As a matter of fact, you were pulling privet last year.
I was pulling privet last year in November out there in that area. But as I was walking down there this year, I noticed that right now they're getting ready to flower. So they're putting on their flower buds. And I was walking down the trail and I was noticing they are concentrated right there at the first of the trail where we were pulling them. But as you go down further down the trail, they're a little bit further in, but they're all along that trail. And that was something I didn't realize. I thought they were all just mostly concentrated up there at the beginning of the trail, but they're all the way down till you get almost all the way to the water.
All right. Is there, other than pulling it, is there any other activities to take with privet, for example?
Well, with privet, if it's gotten to the size where it's too big, you can cut it off and paint it with a concentrated systemic insecticide. So either a glyphosate product or a product that's tree and shrub killer would be another one that you could use.
Really?
Because they are. It's another systemic that's labeled for use against shrubs like that. But the one thing that you do want to do is the privets are used for ornamental plants,
right?
And so it's going to be really hard, almost impossible to get rid of all of the ones that have escaped the landscape and gotten into nature. But we can pull as many as we see. One of the things that I did as I was walking down the trail is I pulled a few of the smaller ones that were only 2 or 3 feet tall. They're fairly easy to pull. They don't have a really deep root system. They're a very shallow rooted plant, so they're easy to pull out of there. So I pulled a few of them as I was walking down there. I didn't want to take a whole handful out because I didn't want somebody asking me questions, but I did my part.
Stealing our plants, stealing our, yeah.
I was trying to do my part and get rid of a few of them while I was walking down there.
All right, talking about woody plants and painting the glyphosate on that, I noticed also, boy, the vines are beginning to come up. I know when you come in, there's a shrub outside our office that the vine springs straight up. I'm impressed with how durable that vine is, that it can go straight to the sky without a fairly, you'd think, a fairly thin membrane.
Yeah, the vine you're talking about is the Smilax vine, and yeah, they usually send up a pretty good long runner. If it gets too long, it'll kind of fall over, flop over, and then it'll get woody.
Right.
If it has something to lean on, it'll just keep going up and up and up and up. So the vines are coming out of dormancy. Not just the Smilax, but a lot of other plants are coming out as well.
So what's a good action on those?
If you're seeing the Smilax come out of the shrubbery, if you can get down below the shrubbery down towards the ground and go ahead and cut those off, one of the things that you can do, because usually they'll come up from a seed and it'll take 2 or 3 years before it gets to the point where it's sending up a big stalk. But if you can cut that off right down at the base, it'll probably send another one up, and then you can cut that one off. Eventually, you're going to wear out that tuber that's down under the ground, storing all that energy.
Those tubers can get very big.
Right, but if you get them while they're small, then it doesn't take very long to get rid of them.
Oh,
So if the vine has been there for years and years and years, it probably has a good sized tuber. But if it's the first or second year that you're seeing it,
about the size of a football.
yeah, well, they can get that big. Yes, I've seen them that big
I
as
have
well.
seen too. Yeah.
But if you get them while they're just 1 or 2 years old, the tuber won't be very big, and they'll be easier to
Snip
get rid of.
down, reach down there and snip it and pull the, of course, the vine out. You don't know. What about painting it? Is it?
Don't necessarily have to. If you paint it, that would be better. So
Obviously.
again, that would be the brush killer concentrate or the glyphosate product. Either one of those will help to.
Glyphosate, I'm thinking, is Roundup.
Yeah, glyphosate would be Roundup, but there are other products that have the glyphosate in there.
Okay.
So it's
All right.
not just Roundup, but
Okay.
the active ingredient. But if you can get down there and cut it and paint it, that's going to be a little bit better, because that'll start wearing out that tuber just a little bit quicker.
Okay. I'm going to ask a question here, really live, but next, not this coming Saturday, but next Saturday, I think they're going to have a recycling opportunity with the health department for paints and items of this nature. Am I correct on that?
I know there's a household hazardous waste day coming up,
I think it's April
and I
20
knew it's in April, but I wasn't sure what the date was.
April 22nd. Okay.
Yes, and that is a day that you can bring any of your household hazardous waste, old chemicals like pesticides that you have laying around, as long as it's in the original container.
That's the point. It's got to be in the original container.
And it helps if it has a label on.
Okay.
And they will take those.
All right.
If you have any pills that have just been laying around, you stopped taking them years ago and they've just been laying there, and you want to get rid of them, you can take those there as well. Paints, I think there's a process, so you may want to call the health department, because I think if it's a latex paint, they want it to be dried out, so you may want to take the lid off and let it dry out. I think if it's an oil-based paint, you might need to put some kitty litter or something in there to make it so it's just absorb the oils and whatnot. But yes, you can take any of your household chemicals, old cleaners that have just been sitting around that you don't use anymore because you don't like that brand or you don't like the smell of that one. You can take those to this household hazardous waste cleanup day, and they'll accept those there as well.
I just thought I'd make mention of that. We'll, of course, talk about that next week as well, as to advise folks. All right. Other items that are taking place right now and activities. And, of course, this weekend we're doing the plant sale.
Yeah, the Master Gardeners will be at the Beaufort Historic Association doing their plant sale. Right. They'll be there until about 4 o'clock unless they run out of plants. So if you're hearing this and you want to get over there, go ahead and get over there.
What about, of course, going forward? This is happening this weekend. Do the Master Gardeners have other plant sales in the future? And by the way, is it only in the spring, or can you have them also in the summer and the fall?
We in Carteret County, our Master Gardener volunteer group just does their one plant sale in the spring. I know that there's a plant sale in Craven, I think, and I'm not sure the date of when that is. Most of the plant sales are in the springtime. There are some counties that will have a plant sale in the fall. Okay. I'm not sure which ones those are, but I know they will do some. And those usually that sell in the fall are going to be trees and shrubs, and not like what we have over there. We have a lot of vegetable crops. We have a lot of perennials that are they're going to be blooming during the summer, and so we want people to get those in so they can enjoy them.
And I've been jumping in with these questions, but there's one other item you mentioned before we go to finish this up. We've got about 5 minutes, and that is turf grass.
Right. I wanted to talk a little bit about turf grass. I'm starting to get a lot of questions. I think it's still just a little bit early. The grass is starting to green up, but it's not fully greened up. Generally, most of the recommendations are to wait about 3 weeks after full green up before you fertilize the grass. Right. So that would put it
unless it's
unless it's a fall grass.
Or well, uh, you've got Bermuda and centipede. Centipede, you don't. Is it time to fertilize that?
Bermuda grass, centipede, St. Augustine, zoysia grass, all four of those lawn maintenance calendars, which are the grasses that we commonly grow around here. All four of those lawn maintenance calendars say to apply the first fertilizer application 3 weeks after full green up. So right now, our grass here in Carteret County isn't quite fully greened up. I'm sure a little bit further inland where the temperatures have been a little bit warmer, it may be at full green up at this point. So about 3 weeks from now, first or second week in May is when you want to go ahead and fertilize for the first time to get that grass growing vigorously.
And how do obviously you've got all the ingredients in fertilizer. Is there a standard, or each grass has a specific?
Well, most turf type fertilizers are going to be like a 3-1-2, it's like a 16-4-8, or a, let's see, 24, 20, something like that, 24, 16, 12. Anyway, I don't remember, 24, 12, 16, something like that. But what you want to do is you want to use a complete fertilizer if you haven't had a soil sample and had the soil tested. If you've had the soil tested, I'm still seeing a lot of soil samples that come back from Carteret County with a very low potassium level.
Really?
So you may want to add a little bit extra potassium. Sometimes there's plenty of phosphorus in the soil. In fact, a lot of times I'm seeing enough phosphorus in the soil that no phosphorus is needed. So a lot of times they'll make a recommendation of 15-0-15 or 15-0-14 to add the nitrogen, which leaches out readily, and the phosphorus, the potassium, which is the third number, to build up the potassium back in the soil.
All right. And then, of course, the other aspect of that with turf is of watering. Should we start thinking about that now?
Yeah, you can start thinking about watering. The one thing that I would recommend doing is in our sandier soils, maybe water it twice a week. If you have a heavier soil, and I know there are some heavier soils in Carteret County as well as the other counties, but if you have a heavier soil that's got a little bit more clay in there, you really only need to water once a week. If you're watering twice a week, add about a half an inch of water each irrigation system. And if you're watering once a week, it's 1 inch of water each time you irrigate, and that'll help to get a deeper root system.
And one more time, remind me, how do I know I've got an inch of water?
If you set out a straight-sided can, like a soup can or a cat food can or a tuna fish can, run your irrigation system for however long you think it needs to run, and then go out and check. You can measure how much water is in that can, and that's how much water you've delivered.
All right. We're talking with Sean Banks again with Carteret County Cooperative Agriculture Extension Agency. And as always, I keep throwing the agriculture in there somewhere because, as always, here on Coastal Gardener, Sean, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Coastal Gardener on the Talk Station, FM 107.1.